Some pretty intense war news coming out today, Friday morning, October the 10th, 2025. As take a look at the latest headlines with me. Russian bombers hit training targets near NATO as the Baltic prepare for attack. We're hearing that things have escalated this morning. Take a look. Fresh Russian incursions raise the temperature for NATO in the Baltic Sea. Now, we're going to be seeing if we go to Article 5 here. Article 4 has already been invoked. NATO nations, they are trying to decide what they're going to be doing in response to all of the Russian airspace violations that have been taking place for various NATO nations. And take a look here. They're already saying we're in hybrid war right now. Russia is accused of waging against Europe right now. Hybrid warfare. Take a look. Putin, Russia is developing new nuclear weapons. We're also hearing that an announcement is going to be coming out here very soon. And I saw somebody mention in the comments that the United States has issued a hypersonic weapons warning also against Russia and China just in the past couple of hours. Russia issues new nuclear warning to the United States. We will retaliate immediately. Now, this was 2 days ago. We saw Russia respond to this. This is over those Tomahawk missiles that the United States is saying they're considering giving to Ukraine to use against Russia. Russia is saying they will hold the United States directly accountable. Coming out today, World War III fears rise as tech billionaires also begin building apocalypse insurance bunkers. Right now, we're hearing that billionaires are preparing to have underground bunkers potentially in place for nuclear attacks. And a horror blast map sparks World War III fears as well. As Putin pal boasts about wiping out the UK, they're showing a map of what it would look like if there was a nuclear blast that took place in Cambridge. So I'm going to share with you the latest coming out here in the past couple of hours this morning, Friday, October the 10th, 2025, as we are hearing that there has been some strikes on some training targets near the NATO borders. I'm going to give you the details. We're hearing that the Baltic nations, they are preparing for attacks, response. We're essentially preparing for war. Now, if you think we're going to be going to war, let me know in the comments. Put war. If you think we're going to be able to stave it off, put peace. We're hearing that there currently is peace in the Middle East right now as there is a ceasefire in Gaza. I've been seeing video footage coming out of the calm that has finally hit. And we're waiting to see what's going to be unfolding. Phase 1 has been developed. Donald Trump, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, their crew has brokered a peace deal agreement between Israel and Hamas at the moment. There's going to be a hostage exchange for prisoners of the war. We're going to be seeing what unfolds. I'll keep you up to date on that. So we have peace over in the Middle East. However, with Russia, NATO nations, the United States, things are escalating, and I'm seeing people putting war in the comments, and I see JS is saying we are already at war, and I've heard a lot of people vocalize that. If you agree, put WW3 in the comments. People saying World War III has already started. It just has not been officially announced, but we have already been in it since we saw Russia do that attack on Ukraine back in 2022, and now here we are several years later. Things are just ramping up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So I'm going to dive right into the latest so that way you can see what's unfolding as of today. And as you know, here on the channel, I cite the sources. Everything's going to be hyperlinked in the description, so you can click these articles, read it for yourself. I'm also going to put it on the screen, read right from it, word for word, so that way you can see the dates, the sources, know and rest assured this is the latest as of today, October the 10th, 2025. Now, if you appreciate that, do me a quick favor, just takes a second, hit that thumbs up like button. All that does is help the channel while we're live spread out further across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updated information. In addition to that, to stay up to date, as I'm pretty much doing daily updates, been doing 2 updates a day almost now. To stay up to date, hit the subscribe button. It's totally free, and as updates come out, I will report them. You'll be able to get the latest updated information. But let's go ahead and dive into the latest so you can see it for yourself. And I see the like button count starting to go up. Thank you guys. And I see we've got over 2,000 people in the room. And just so you know, if you can get that like button up over 1,000, if you haven't hit like yet and you appreciate the live stream, that helps a ton. If we got half of the room to hit the like button while we're live, that would be awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in, though, so you can see it for yourself. Take a look coming out this morning. Russian bombers hit training targets near NATO as the Baltic prepare for attacks. They're saying they are getting to the point where they've had enough of Russia sitting here poking and prodding and preparing for attacks. They're not going to take it. Leon Smith, thank you for the $20 super chat. I appreciate that generosity. Says it's not looking good. It's getting scary. Yeah, Leon Smith, you're not the only one saying that. We have heard that it has not been this bad since World War II. Essentially, what we are seeing is very reminiscent of the last global conflict that we had. Now, let's take a look at this article here. You can see Russian bombers from the country's Baltic fleet struck targets on a training ground in Kaliningrad, the Baltic enclave surrounded by NATO allies, according to state media. Crews of 10 Su-30 SM-2 multi-purpose fighters and Su-24M tactical frontline bombers from the fleet took part in the exercise, which involved bombing targets while traveling at more than 620 miles per hour, the official TASS news agency said, and practicing the evasion of aircraft and air defense. They also trained in shooting enemy armored columns. So this right along the NATO border, causing a lot of concern of these countries that are currently on edge, invoking Article 4 and just one step away from Article 5. Nearby Baltic allies, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they have been preparing themselves for a potential Russian attack amid heightened tensions with NATO, practicing their contingency plans, including mass evacuation procedures, Reuters reported. They say that Russia is already waging a hybrid war against them through sabotage, cyber attacks, airspace violations, and more. And the airspace violations have been going on in various nations. NATO is saying this is Russia poking, prodding, trying to see who is not ready, who is susceptible to being attacked, so that way they can prepare for phase 2 of their mission. Right now, Ukraine is phase 1. These nations saying who is going to be phase 2, who is up next. Now, also, I shared with you yesterday, Russia is saying it's a false flag narrative. Russia is saying these airspace violations are not us. It's Poland doing it to itself, then blaming us to justify the attacks that are going to be coming. Russia is saying, regardless, be aware of the fact war is on the horizon. Now, reading on, it says, it's a very reassuring message to our society that we are ready and we are planning. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrai told Reuters, we have done our homework. Now, NATO allies fear that Russia, under President Vladimir Putin, has ambitions well beyond Ukraine, as I mentioned. They believe that he is right now prodding to see who's going to be phase 2, including in the former Soviet Baltic states, and could move if Moscow calculates that the alliance would not uphold its Article 5 commitment to mutual defense. The Kremlin denies harboring any such desire and accuses NATO of seeking conflict with Russia, as I just mentioned to you a little while ago. Now, reading on, Putin issues nuclear weapons updates. We're hearing that this is going to be coming out here very soon. On Friday, Putin and Moscow expect to announce soon a new weapon that it has been developing and testing for its vast nuclear arsenal, and warned that an arms race is underway. The sophistication of our nuclear deterrent systems is higher than that of any other nuclear state. The state news agency TASS reported Putin as saying, originally in Russian, and we are developing all of this very actively, he added. Now, the Russian president, who was speaking at a press conference in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, at the end of a summit of former Soviet states, added, what I spoke about in earlier years is all progressing. We are bringing it to perfection. He also said that a certain kind of arms race is indeed underway in the world, and warned that some countries are preparing for testing of nuclear weapons. He did not specify, though, which countries those are, but we have heard a lot of warnings right now with the enemies, the adversaries of the United States, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and we saw all of them come together maybe about a month or so ago as they celebrated the 80th anniversary of World War II in China, hosted by Xi Jinping, to which we saw President Donald Trump of the United States come out and say, I see you, China. I see you, Russia. We know that you are gathering the adversaries of the United States conspiring against us, and we are ready. Man, let me know your thoughts. And if you appreciate the approach of Donald Trump on this, drop a 47 in the comments. Now, reading on, but this is also well known to experts. There's always the temptation to check the effectiveness of the combat fuel that has been stored in missiles for many, many years, Putin said, per TASS. Everything is simulated on computers, and specialists believe that's sufficient, but some of them think it's necessary to carry out real full-scale tests. And in some countries, as far as we know, they are considering this and even making preparations. Putin continued, "That's why I said that if they conduct tests, we will do the same." Is that good or bad? From the standpoint of ensuring security, it's good, Putin said. So there you have it. Putin saying that they're going to run these tests and drills, and they're running them right along the NATO border, causing a lot of concern this morning. NATO is preparing for attacks. And as you can see, here is another article coming out from ABC News today. Fresh Russian incursions raise the temperature for NATO in the Baltic Seas. Now, also, we're hearing that warfare is underway, hybrid warfare. Let's talk a little bit about this. This article coming out yesterday as we started to see this coming out. Russia saying we are already at war. Key points. Russia wants to sow division. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Wednesday, Moscow denies the responsibility for a multitude of incidents aimed at disrupting and undermining its neighbors in Europe. So again, Russia is saying this is a false flag narrative. We didn't do it. Another point, hybrid warfare covers a variety of tactics, from cyber warfare to disinformation campaigns. Europe has to confront the reality of the hybrid warfare being waged against it, according to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, telling EU lawmakers that a series of incidents was not random harassment, but part of a concerted campaign to unsettle and weaken the bloc. So they are saying this is not by mistake, this is not by accident, this is Russia preparing for war. Recent drone and airspace incursions, cyber attacks, and election interference were just a few incidents that von der Leyen cited as instances of hybrid warfare against Europe. In just the past 2 weeks, MiG fighters have violated Estonia's airspace, and drones have flown over critical sites in Belgium, Poland, Romania, Denmark, and Germany. Flights have been grounded, jets scrambled, and countermeasures deployed to ensure the safety of our citizens, von der Leyen said Wednesday during a speech to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, France. Make no mistake, this is part of a worrying pattern of growing threats. Across our union, undersea cables have been cut, airports and logistics hubs paralyzed by cyber attacks, and elections targeted by malign influence campaigns, von der Leyen said, adding emphatically, this is hybrid warfare, and we have to take it very seriously. While she did not blame all those incidents directly on Moscow, von der Leyen said that it was evident that Russia wants to sow division. Moscow has long accused of being behind the multitude of hybrid attacks against its European neighbors, but has repeatedly denied those accusations. CNBC contacted the Kremlin for a response to von der Leyen's latest remarks and is awaiting a response. So what is hybrid warfare? So what is hybrid warfare? War or warfare? Put simply, it's a way to wage a type of warfare without appearing to be doing so. There is no set definition of hybrid warfare, but defense, military, and security experts agree that fundamentally it blends conventional military methods with more subversive or irregular tactics designed to disrupt, distract, and undermine the adversary. European countries on the periphery of the EU and those on the frontier with Russia, like the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or those in Eastern Europe, such as Romania and Poland, they have been increasingly exposed to hybrid warfare attacks. These incidents, they have ranged from energy and telecommunication infrastructure, such as undersea cables being sabotaged, to Russian jets or submarines venturing into NATO airspace or waters for short periods of time. Russia has denied being behind many of these incidents, although it tends not to comment on its jets entering NATO airspace or drone incidents that led to Danish airports being closed and flights disrupted. Now, a number of European officials accused Russia of being behind the disruptions, but national authorities often say it's difficult to find solid evidence of Russian involvement. That's one of the hallmarks of hybrid warfare, the EU's von der Leyen said, with such incidents calculated to linger in the twilight of deniability. So they're saying it is hard to put your finger exactly on who is behind it, but they sense that they know who it is. Russia's campaign of hybrid activities in Europe has expanded significantly since Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began over 3 years ago, according to a report published earlier this year from geopolitical and security intelligence services Dragonfly. It documented 219 incidents of suspected Russian hybrid warfare in Europe since 2014, including sabotage, assassinations, and electromagnetic attacks, such as GPS jamming. Of these incidents, 86% of them have taken place since early 2022, and almost half, 46%, occurred in 2024 alone. So they're saying this looks like it's taking place while the Russia-Ukraine conflict is going on, likely coming from Russia, and it is ramping up, over half happening in just the past year alone. The Baltic states, Finland, Germany, Norway, Poland, and the UK will probably remain the primary targets, the report noted, due to the strong support for Ukraine. Europe says it's ready to act. European officials are under no illusion that the time to act to bolster regional security and defenses against malign activities is now. And we keep hearing this. Right now, it looks like every day it's escalating, ramping up. We're hearing they are preparing for war. NATO members earlier this year pledged to increase defense spending by 5% of gross domestic product, and Europe has vowed to mobilize its defense sector to meet the permanent threat to European security that's posed by Russia, as Luxembourg Prime Minister Luc Frieden told CNBC last week. Member states discussed last week the creation of flagship defense projects such as the Eastern Flank Watch Initiative, which proposed the creation of a drone wall network that would protect against airspace violations by unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs. There is some ambivalence over the drone wall, however, with Germany's defense minister appearing to pour cold water on that idea. Luxembourg's Frieden said the EU did not want to conflict with Russia, but needed to protect itself. Did not want a conflict with Russia, but needed to protect itself. Excuse me, having a hard time this morning. I should have drank some more coffee. Hybrid attacks are obviously something that can happen anywhere. The cables in the Baltic Sea, the attacks on our IT systems, the drones that can fly over some of our countries, that shows that there is a certain kind of provocation that we have to take seriously, he said, adding, I don't want us to be at war with Russia, but we need to take threats seriously. Now, we want to tell Russia, don't try, stop it, go back, and that it has no chance in conquering the Europe. Wow. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. Things escalating significantly. And just this morning as well, as I mentioned to you, we are hearing that Russian bombers have hit training targets near NATO as Baltic states are preparing for attack. Now, Russia is also developing a new nuclear weapon. We're hearing that this announcement might be coming out today, but very soon here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Moscow expect to announce soon a new weapon that it has been developing and testing for its vast nuclear arsenal, the world's largest, and warned that an arms race is underway. And actually, we heard this warning come out from the United States about 2 hours ago, warning of hypersonic attacks and issues. Now, it comes as the New START treaty between the United States and Russia restricting nuclear weapons is set to expire February of 2026, and tensions with NATO alliance escalating sharply over the ongoing war in Ukraine. There is a growing risk of a direct clash between Russia and NATO. Western allies accuse Russia of serious airspace violations, sabotage plots, cyber attacks, and more, as we just read in the previous article, which Moscow has denied. Both sides characterize the conflict as a form of war. So many saying, we are in war right now. It has already started. Now, the sophistication of our nuclear deterrence systems is higher than that of any other nuclear state. State news agency TASS reported Putin saying, originally in Russian, and we are developing all of this very actively. The Russian president, who was speaking at a press conference in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, at the end of the summit of former Soviet states, added, What I spoke about in earlier years is all progressing. We are bringing it to perfection. So this is reminiscent of what we just saw in the previous articles. Jumping down, it says, according to the Federation of American Scientists, Russia has a total inventory of 5,459 nuclear warheads, of which 1,718 are deployed. The United States has 5,177 warheads, of which 1,770 are deployed. So we have heard that Russia has more nuclear warheads than the United States. You can see roughly by about 300. However, the United States has about 50 more that are ready and actively prepared to be deployed. So this is currently where we're at in the state of concern for nuclear fallout. Now it says Putin, countries preparing for testing in nuclear arms race. So they're just talking a little bit more about the concerns. And as I mentioned, just a couple of hours ago, the United States issuing out that warning as well. Russia issues a nuclear warning to the United States. We will retaliate immediately. And this is in response, as I mentioned, to the United States potentially giving over those Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at some video footage coming out this morning regarding this, so that way you can see the latest. We're going to see what unfolds with those Tomahawks. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I want to move on now to another big war, Russia-Ukraine. President Trump meeting with the president of Finland at the White House as NATO defense ministers set to meet in Brussels next week to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war. That is where you are right now. Here is President Trump on stepping up the pressure regarding that war. Watch.
We're all stepping it up. NATO's been great. The leader of NATO, as you know, Mark, has been fantastic, I think, and he's a fantastic guy. And they are stepping it up. And we're selling a lot of weapons to NATO, and that's going, I guess, to Ukraine for the most part. That's up to them.
Matt, NATO ambassador, excuse me, so used to calling you Matt. How much longer can Russia withstand this concerted pressure now that Donald J. Trump has NATO fully invested to the conflict that, in many respects, is in their own backyard for most of these countries?
Yeah, well, first of all, Todd, I've been called a lot worse. But that being said, I'm coordinating those, U.S. weapons being sold to our NATO allies, then being provided to Ukraine. And, it's going very well. Europe is stepping up. It's part of the overall burden sharing that we have negotiated coming out of the summit that we had in The Hague in June. And so there's a lot of good news. And one of the things that I think we need to understand, and I'd like folks watching to understand, is that while Vladimir Putin has tried to divide this alliance, tried to divide NATO, tried to divide the West, we've only become closer. We're only working more cooperatively and more collaboratively. And the Europeans, who for so long ignored their own security in favor of, very lavish public benefits, they're finally getting serious and investing in real capabilities. And those capabilities are what's going to continue to make NATO strong and continue to keep the NATO alliance safe and secure and deter future wars. But at the same time, we need this Russian-Ukraine war to end. President Trump obviously has been focused on this, but he has said that both sides are not ready to make a deal, and he's going to let them continue to fight it out. Hopefully, better angels will overcome those desires, and especially on the Russian side. And we're going to continue to increase the pressure on them, whether that's the potential of deep strike capabilities provided to the Ukrainians, or whether that is a more robust activity regarding the shadow fleet that moves the oil from Russia to folks that are still buying it, like China, India, and Brazil. So we're going to continue to do the important here. It's oftentimes not super sexy, but you know what? It's important, and ultimately, it's going to prevent wars from ever starting in the first place.
Yeah, and President Trump said this week that he is still considering those Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, when Russia has made it clear they hate that idea. So we will be watching to see if that comes to fruition as well. U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, we thank you so much for joining us.
So there you have it, you guys, and you heard her mention there at the end that they are still trying to decide what's going to be unfolding with those Tomahawk missiles. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Russia has responded in the last 48 hours. Russia issues a nuclear warning to the United States, a new nuclear warning that says we will retaliate immediately. Now, this article says that Russia has issued a warning that it will retaliate if any country, particularly the United States, resumes nuclear testing, according to the Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov. Now, let me go ahead and take a look here at the... Can you hear me okay? Let me know. Put a 5x5 in the chat. Just wanted to make sure my sound is good here. Just want to double check. I'm going to keep reading. If I see 5x5s, I know I'm good. Speaking to reporters and the State Duma, Rybakov accused Washington of maintaining nuclear test infrastructure in a state of readiness and signaled that Moscow is closely monitoring U.S. actions. The comments follow Russian President Vladimir Putin's remarks at the Valdy International Discussion Club, where he suggested preparations for nuclear tests were underway elsewhere. Okay, cool. I see those 5x5s. I thought things had kind of frozen on my end there for a second. We are good. Reading on. If a country with the capabilities makes the erroneous decision to conduct nuclear tests, and Washington is clearly in our focus, then we will retaliate immediately, they said. Newsweek has reached out to the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs via email for a comment. Now, here's why it matters. The statements mark a significant escalation in nuclear rhetoric between two of the world's most critical nuclear powers. Russia's threat of retaliation and its withdrawal from key arms control agreements signal a deteriorating strategic relationship with the United States. These developments could undermine decades of nuclear non-proliferation efforts and heighten global security risks, particularly as existing treaties approach expiration. The breakdown of cooperation on plutonium disposal and the uncertain future of the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or the New START, raise concern about the erosion of arms control frameworks that have helped maintain strategic stability since the end of the Cold War. The absence of dialogue and mutual verification mechanisms could lead to miscalculations and heightened tensions. So here's what to know. Rybakov said that Moscow would respond immediately if any country conducted nuclear tests. He emphasized that Washington has maintained its nuclear test infrastructure in a state of combat readiness, a posture Russia has monitored since its decision regarding New START. Now, New START, signed in 2010 by U.S. President Barack Obama and Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, remained the cornerstone of bilateral nuclear arms control. The agreement caps each nation at 1,550 deployed nuclear warheads and 700 deployed delivery systems, including missiles and bombers. A key feature of the treaty, on-site inspections to verify compliance, was suspended in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and has yet to resume. Originally set to expire in 2021, the pact was extended for 5 years, pushing the expiration to February of 2026. Putin echoed Rybakov's concern, saying at the Valdy International Discussion Club that Russia believes someone is preparing for nuclear tests. He warned that any such action would prompt a retaliatory response from Moscow. Now, Rybakov clarified that Russia's proposal to extend the quantitative limits of New START for 1 year beyond its February 2026 expiration depends on the U.S. avoiding destabilizing actions. These include offensive strategic weapons developments and missile defense initiatives that Russia views as a threat to its nuclear deterrence. During a State Duma session, Rybakov announced Russia's intent to formally terminate its obligations under the 2000 Plutonium Management and Disposition Agreement with the United States. He cited unacceptable changes proposed by Washington and a lack of consent from Moscow regarding disposal methods. The agreement, ratified in 2011, required both nations to dispose of 34 tons of weapons-grade plutonium. Russia suspended its participation in 2016 following U.S. sanctions, NATO expansion, and increased American military presence in Eastern Europe. Rybakov reiterated that these shifts, along with the U.S. unilateral changes to disposal procedures, justified Russia's withdrawal. So we have seen that unfold just recently. They are saying they're going to go ahead and keep the plutonium. They could create literally tens of thousands of nuclear warheads with it. They are backing out of that. Rybakov assured lawmakers that the formal termination of the agreement would not require new federal budget expenditures. He added that all necessary approvals had been secured and that the legislative process was underway. So here's what people are saying. Rybakov told reporters, "I'd like to emphasize that the U.S. has long been keeping its infrastructure ready for such purposes. Such time ago, we took note of this stance. This occurred when the Russian side made a decision on the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or the New START." He also said if a country with the capability makes the erroneous decision to conduct nuclear tests, and Washington is clearly in our focus, so they are pointing the finger at the United States, then we will retaliate immediately. The thing is, we put forward the proposal and we extended our hand, but we can do without it a response task if they are not interested. So they are blaming the United States. There is no discussion, and I emphasize this, about the proposal to renew the treaty. The idea is to maintain the key quantitative limits outlined in that agreement for a year after the treaty officially expires. That is, starting on February 6th of next year, strictly provided that the United States does not, for its part, take action that may disrupt the existing parity and balance in strategic stability. And right now, there's concerns, as I mentioned, as we saw, about those Tomahawk missiles being handed over to Ukraine. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this. You can see here, World War III fears rise. Tech billionaires are building underground bunkers. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has spent millions so far kitting out sprawling compounds with large underground areas. Let me ask you, with everything that's going on, would you build yourself an underground bunker if you had the funds of Mark Zuckerberg? If so, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that it is necessary to have an underground bunker for potential nuclear fallout? World War III fears and worries about impending apocalypse are pushing tech billionaires to build bunkers to protect themselves. Now, Mark Zuckerberg is just one of many of the world's elite who have been preparing, having started work on a massive 1,400-acre compound on the Hawaiian island of Kauai in 2014. So he's been preparing for quite some time. And now with the way that things are escalating, I don't know, might not be a bad idea. I'm seeing some yeses pouring into the comments. And while you put yes or no on whether or not you would create an underground bunker, don't forget, if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that like button for me. It looks like we just need 20 more likes to get 1,300 while we're live. It is set to include a 5,000 square foot underground shelter with its own energy and food supply. The many craftsmen and builders working on the project are made to sign non-disclosure agreements to prevent more information coming out, a Wired investigation found. Now, it comes as Putin continues to make chilling warnings to the West with no end to the war in Ukraine in sight. The project is blocked from the road by a 6-foot wall. Zuckerberg has denied that it's a doomsday bunker, describing the underground space as just like a little shelter. It's like a little basement, he said. His underground building spree hasn't stopped there, having bought 11 properties in the same neighborhood of Palo Alto in California. Underneath that sprawling compound, he added 7,000 square feet of what is referred to as basement space in permits, but locals call it bunkers or a billionaire bat cave. So they are saying that he is trying to hide out underground, and he is saying, no, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's just, it's a basement. But they're saying that he has bought 7,000 square feet of basement space underneath Palo Alto. And it's not just Zuckerberg who seems to be madly preparing for something. Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, described the process as apocalypse insurance. He claimed that it's something half of the super wealthy they have, with many buying up land in distant countries like New Zealand. Atlas Survival Shelters is a firm making bunkers for a wide range of clients. They range from safe rooms in apartment blocks to massive underground compounds, including shooting ranges, movie theaters, and even its own oxygen system. He told The Independent that he was hired to design Mark Zuckerberg's bunker in Hawaii and even signed a NDA, but now wants to set the record straight after media rumors the bunker is costing over $50 million. His bunker is like 2,000 square feet, Hubbard said. It's not a $53 million bunker. If he's lucky, it costed $2 million. It's not even called a bunker or a construction plan. On the construction plans, he added. The plan calls it a storm shelter. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that this is an apocalyptic bunker shelter? I saw a lot of people put yes, they would do so if they had the funds to go ahead and build that. And it makes sense that if it was he wouldn't want anybody to know. He would want to just go ahead and be able to have that ready, available for him just in case. Now, if we did see nuclear war unfold, take a look at what's come out here in just the past 24 hours roughly. We have a horror blast map sparking World War III fears as Putin's pal boasts about wiping out the UK. He said that if we hit the UK, the world would be very happy. They would applaud what we did. As Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov claims, the whole of humanity will applaud should President Vladimir Putin choose to wipe out the UK. A harrowing map illustrates the destruction that he could bring. Let's take a look at this. Once again, Vladimir Solovyov has sent chills down the spine of Brits after very publicly imagining a scenario in which Russian President Vladimir Putin could unleash nuclear warfare over the UK. Now, Solovyov, who is paid a handsome salary to push Kremlin narratives, has claimed that if Ukraine is supplied with Tomahawk long-range missiles, as has been hinted at by U.S. President Donald Trump, then the West can expect a nuclear standoff compared to the dark days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, showing no mercy as he considered how such drastic actions would be received on the world stage, Solovyov boasted, "But, by the way, if the United Kingdom is wiped out, I think the whole of humanity will applaud. God, it's good, how they will say it. That's the truth. It's good, they will say." Solovyov even went as far as to cruelly suggest that Putin would spark panic in London by abruptly withdrawing Russian diplomats, making Western powers believe that a strike was imminent. With some relish, he considered, imagine the panic that would ensue if suddenly the embassy left completely. Of course, it's hoped that such a nightmarish scenario will never come to pass. But for those curious about what it would look like if Putin actually chose to obliterate a UK city, a devastating map holds the answers. Here it is. Putin's nuclear threat to wipe out the UK, as propagandists say, world will applaud. So if it were to hit right here in Cambridge, you can see the extent of the blast and how far it would reach. I believe this first circle, if I remember correctly, because we've gone over several of these maps here in the channel, is the evaporation zone. So if you are in this first circle, and unfortunately I don't see a scale here, looks like this over here is 3 kilometers. I usually deal in English metrics, English systems, so miles would help me out here, but I believe this is the evaporation zone. If you're in here, you're just going to be evaporated. I believe the next part is where the fireball would exist. Everything will be hit with a blast and with fire. And I think everything out to this point is the radiation zone where glass would break. People would see the flash. You want to stay away, and you would get hit with radiation poisoning, if I remember correctly. I don't see a breakdown. Let's take a look here. It says nuclearsecrecy.com has created a frightening nuke map tool which gives a fair estimate of the possible catastrophic damage caused by nuclear weapons. The brainchild of the science and nuclear weapons professor Alex Wellerstein from the Stevens Institute of Technology. Site users can trial various intimidating tools, including a nightmarish 800-kiloton nuke known to be currently sitting in Russia's arsenal. The consequences of dropping this weapon over Cambridge, as so crassly joked about by Solovyov, would be nothing short of hellish. The nuclear fireball would engulf in a radius of 2.97 kilometers. Yes, so that first one is the fireball that would engulf everything, evaporation zone, encompassing the suburbs of Grantchester, Milton, and Telversham, as well as the university's main iconic campus. Now, as claimed by the nuke map, maximum size of the nuclear fireball, relevance to damage on the ground depends on the height of detonation. If it touches the ground, the amount of radioactive fallout is significantly increased. Anything inside the fireball is effectively vaporized. So again, that first circle is the vaporization zone. The second zone, which would have a moderate blast damage radius, would cover an area of 134 kilometers squared. Within this site, buildings would start to collapse and fire would erupt, as explained by this exceptionally gloomy map. At 5 psi over pressure, most residential buildings collapse. Injuries are universal. Fatalities are widespread. The chance of a fire starting in commercial or residential damage are high, and buildings so damaged are at high risk of spreading fire, often used as a benchmark for moderate damage in cities. The third zone, with an area of 384 kilometers squared, would also be heavily impacted, with the nuke map predicting third-degree burns extend throughout the layer of the skin and are often painless because they destroy the pain nerves. They can cause severe scarring or disablement and can require amputation. Those living in the light blast damage radius zone just around the edge of Cambridge could still suffer, bearing in mind that flashes travel at quicker speeds than the pressure wave. This could still cause injuries to those that may come up to the window after seeing a flash explosion. Just a reminder, if by chance you think that a bomb is going to hit, there is a nuclear bomb that is potentially falling, they always say, do not look at it. The blast could blind you instantly. According to this map, rival city Oxford would experience a similarly awful outcome. The inner zone encompassing the university campus would be instantly vaporized, with damage extending as far out as Woodstock and Bicester. The International Commission of the Radiology Protection urges the best way to protect you and your family before, during, or after a nuclear blast is getting inside the centre of the building or basement. On August 6, 1945, Mr. Izo Nomura was in a basement of a building in Hiroshima, about 170 meters from ground zero. He survived the atomic bombing and died in 1982 at the age of 84. Most people within 100 meters of the nuclear detonation are not likely to survive, especially unprepared. So be inside before the fallout. Given this advice, many would assume that London, with its extensive underground network, would be the safest place to hide during a blast, with the tube tunnels having provided some protection during the Blitz. However, some experts fear that modern nuclear weapons could penetrate significantly further than the bombs of World War II, meaning that even the 58-meter deep Hampstead Station would still be too close to the surface. And we've heard that warning that right now, the type of nuclear warheads that we have are significantly stronger and more powerful than what we saw experienced in World War II. Andrew Futter, a professor of the international politics at the University of Leicester, previously warned My London that the underground probably won't be deep enough if there was a direct hit. Therefore, should Russia ever target one of the UK's major cities from London to Edinburgh, it's thought that being outside of the blast zone would present the best chance of survival. When considering the reach of the nuclear blast, several factors must be taken into account, including a radiation radius of approximately 153 kilometers squared, a fireball radius of around 197 kilometers squared, an air blast radius ranging from 321 kilometers squared to 1,420 kilometers squared, and the thermal radiation radius of 12,960 kilometers squared. So again, those inner circles, you're planning to be instantly vaporized. After that, burns, third-degree burns, tons of burns. We're also hearing that the asphalt of streets would turn to magma lava. It would be lit up so hot. Buildings would catch on fire. They would collapse. Going out a little bit further, you might be hit with that wind blast. You could be blinded if you see the light of the explosion. And going out even further, the radiation exposure still could get you, even if you don't feel any of that. You got to just stay away, get as far away as you can, so that way you're not a part of the fallout. Although these distances may vary depending on weather conditions, property researchers have previously listed places that could provide relative safety in this nightmare scenario. These 20 locations compiled by property portal eMove back in 2017 are situated outside of the immediate range of a blast in the major British cities. So they're saying, here are some of the places you could go if you wanted to be safe in Cambridge. So there you have it, you guys. And again, coming out this morning, concerns as Russian bombers hit training targets near NATO as Baltics prepare for attacks. Significant escalation this morning, Friday, October the 10th, 2025. We're going to be seeing where we go from here. Do you think that we're going to be entering into global conflict? Russia versus NATO, the United States getting pulled in? If so, put 5 in the comments for Article 5. Now, if you think no, we're going to be able to stave this off and have peace, put a 4 for Article 4, which has already been invoked, which is just the discussions, which we are currently in that state right now. But if you think we're going to go to the next level here very soon, put a 5 for Article 5 being invoked, which is all NATO nations coming together, defending themselves actively against an opposing threat, which is Russia at this time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm already seeing the 5s pouring in. Now, do me a favor, if you haven't done so yet, hit the like button. If you appreciate the updates, all these articles that I've referenced today, they're going to be linked in the description below. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it. And also, to stay up to date, hit that subscribe button. It is totally free. But that is the latest, you guys. A lot going on, and as more comes out, I'll be sure to keep you up to speed here on the channel. But that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care, God bless, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is Steve.